outside of Lexington that has been blocked by John Parker and 77 colonial militia who gathered in that field to keep the British soldiers from advancing to Concord. 77 versus 700. Okay? Well, Parker knows he's outnumbered 10 to 1, but he plans to send a message to the British troops. We are here, we have guns, and we're going to resist. That was the message that Parker, despite the fact that he was outnumbered 10 to 1, made real clear to the British. We are here, we have guns, and we are going to resist. Well, the British major in charge of those 700 troops was John Pitcairn. And John Pitcairn did not want to fight in Lexington, because his goal is to capture what? The supplies and ammunition and gunpowder at Concord. And able to do that, he's got to get across a bridge. He's got to secure this bridge closer to Concord so he can get to Concord so that he can get these supplies and ammunition and gunpowder. So he doesn't want to mess around with 77 resistors here. Okay? He really doesn't want to fight in Lexington. Well, he gets there. He's got 700 soldiers. They have 77. They say, we are here. We have guns and we're going to resist. So what does Pitcairn order the colonial militia to do when he rides up upon this? He orders the colonial militia to what?
Not fire.
Well, he's not going to. He's the British commander. So what's he going to order him to do? Not fire. He's not even given a chance to that. He was going to stand down and what?
Move.
Lay down your arms. So Pitcairn is forced to respond to these colonial militia gathered to block their advance to Concord, and he orders the colonial militia to lay down their arms. What does John Parker then order his men to do after that order was given by Pitcairn? What does Parker order his own men to do?
Fire.
Opposite. Hold their fire. Because he knows if this gets edgy, what's going to happen? He's going to get crushed. But he's prepared. So when Pitcairn orders the colonial militia to lay down their weapons, John Parker, knowing that would tick off the colonial militia, orders them to hold their fire. Well, as soon as Parker tells his men to hold their fire, Major Pitcairn orders his soldiers to also hold their fire. Can you imagine the tension here? Okay? So Pitcairn is still trying to get out of this without a battle. And he's thinking if he could make some hay here and maybe get past him and say, hey, everybody holds their fire, maybe we can make this work. Well, as it always happens, somebody did fire. To this day, they don't know which side. But somebody fired, and all of a sudden it resulted in a barrage of British bullets at the colonial militia. So somebody fires, and the British fire upon the colonial militia. Well, the colonial militia is quickly overwhelmed. They immediately retreat into the nearby woods for protection. And in less than 15 minutes, the Redcoats have routed the colonists. 8 patriots lay dead, 10 more wounded, just from that short engagement. So as soon as they fired, you know, these aren't repeaters. You fire one time and you got to load up again. So they did that initial fire. The colonial militia was overwhelmed, obviously so, 700 to 77. They retreat into the woods to protect themselves. 8 patriots are killed and 10 more are wounded. Well, the British troops now march straight into Concord, and they do the following 3 things in Concord. They march right into Concord. First thing they do is they cut down the Liberty Pole. Cut down the Liberty Pole. The British march into Concord and cut down the Liberty Pole. Second thing they do is they set fire to the courthouse. Set fire to the courthouse. Third thing they do is they destroy several gun carriages. What's a gun carriage? Anybody know? Make sure I get this right here. Okay, they destroy several gun carriages. Do you see what's a gun carriage? What's a lipstick carriage? What's a lipstick and makeup carriage? What's a wallet carriage, you girls call it? Which is a container, right? To contain stuff. Gun carriages are gun containers. These are boxes of guns, where guns are stored. Okay, storage containers. Your purse is your storage container for your makeup and all of that. Well, the redcoats are feeling pretty saucy, and they head back to Boston after kicking butt in Concord. Unfortunately for them, about 2,000 Minutemen from 40 different cities in Massachusetts are waiting along the trail back. Minutemen, what are they? Patriots that are ready in a minute's notice. They call them Minutemen. So they go in there and do their business in Concord, and as they march back to Boston, they are going to get a surprise. Because 2,000 Minutemen from 40 different cities in Massachusetts are waiting for them. Well, the British march right into this, abandon their position, which means their straight marching formations, and retreat back to Boston as fast as they can, as 1,600 angry militia fire upon them from behind stone walls, buildings, trees, all the things you're not supposed to do if you're fighting. Because you know there's honor, you got to fight in columns. So picture that in your mind. The redcoats do all this, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. They head back and they go, uh-oh. And they can see these 2,000 militia, 1,600 to 2,000 militia out there, and they just break ranks and try any way they can to get back to Boston as these militiamen, 1,600 to 2,000, are firing at them from behind stone walls, buildings, trees, rocks, anything they can. Well, as the British retreat back to Boston, guess whose home they go right by again? Samuel Whittemore's. And he was quite the character. He had the heart of a warrior, and he turned his anger towards those retreating redcoats. And he waited until these soldiers were almost right on top of him, and he pulls out his musket, bang, kills a British soldier just like that. Pulls out his musket, kills a British soldier. Well, it takes time to reload that musket, right? Doesn't have time. So he whips out his 2 dueling pistols. I'm not making this up. And he kills 2 more redcoats as they're fleeing back past his farm and ranch, or farm and home. So he shoots the first one with his musket, whips out his dueling pistols. Those are pistols, we'll talk about those that people use in duels, one-shot pistols. Shoots 2 more. He's not done yet, the 78-year-old. He pulls out his saber, old French saber, that he captured during the French and Indian War, and he charges after 2 more British soldiers. I'm not making this up. And he's shot at point-blank range and is bayoneted, that means the bayonets on the end of the guns, more than a dozen times. So as he takes his French saber after these British soldiers, he's shot at point-blank range and is bayoneted more than a dozen times by these redcoats and left for dead. Tough old bird, isn't he? So tough that he did not die. The guy survived. He actually lived several more years and died in his mid-90s. Samuel Whittemore. Now you history buffs in here that took history classes up to this point, how many of you know that story? Nobody. That's a great story. True story. As those British are fleeing back to Boston. He lived to be his mid-90s. Yeah, they shot him at point blank range and bayoneted him 12 times. And he lived to be over 90. Well, let's go back to the Battle of Concord. Here were the British casualties as they retreated. The British had 73 soldiers killed. 73 killed. 170 more were wounded. 73 British soldiers killed at the Battle of Concord. 174 soldiers wounded, and 26 missing. They never did find. So, pretty high casualty rate compared to the American body count, which was 49 killed. So this was a victory for the colonists, a victory for the colonial militia against the British, who were seen as way more superior. 173 British soldiers killed, 174 wounded, 26 missing. The American body count, 49.
Wait, is it 173 or 73?
73 killed, 174 wounded, 26 missing, and the American body count, 49. Now, the Redcoats, what was left of them, reached Boston late in the day. Weary faces, bloody bandages, tattered uniforms carrying their wounded comrades. America and Great Britain are now what? Officially at war. Shots have been fired. Deaths have occurred. Who got the clear message that he had underestimated the colonists? First, General Gage. Thomas Gage, who was the governor of Massachusetts, had received a clear message from the colonists that they were much more determined and more effective fighters than he ever thought they would be. Well, a few days slipped by, and the colonists got some more good news. A colonial militia force by the name of the Green Mountain Boys, from what is now Vermont, had seized several British forts in the New England area. So after the Battle of Concord, the colonists get good news, more good news. A small colonial militia called the Green Mountain Boys, from what is now Vermont, had seized several British forts. And this Green Mountain Boy militia was led by Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold. Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold led the Green Mountain Boys through New England, capturing British forts stationed in the New England area. The sports that were most important, if you had taken this class, if I went started back in 1600, you'd know this already, but I didn't. Ticonderoga, and Crown Point, two very important British forts captured by the Green Mountain Boys that were located on Lake Champlain. Anybody know where that is? What state? Oh, it's associated with Whittemore. New York. Okay. Now, what was the best news about the capture of these British forts? That's exactly right, my dear. The gunpowder, shot, and cannons from the forts that were captured and now on their way to Boston to help the colonial cause. So, first skirmish, so to speak, other than that little incident outside of Lexington, has really, really benefited the colonists. Okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about the Second Continental Congress, and then the Battle of Bunker Hill, better known as the Battle of Breed's Hill, and there's a reason there's a little confusion there, and we'll tell you about that tomorrow.